The ancient Greeks could conquer cities, invent democracy, and calculate the circumference of the earth. But figuring out love between men and women, that was the real battle. From Plato turning romance into a soul-lifting gym routine, to Socrates calling it a divine form of madness, and Aristotle reducing it to a marriage contract, these toga-clad geniuses made dating sound like homework. Let's eavesdrop on 2,400 years of overthinking romance, and have a little laugh at their expense. Picture yourself sprawled on a sun-warmed stone bench in an Athenian stoa, circa 400 BCE, the air thick with the scent of olive oil, dusty sandals, and the faint whiff of a philosopher who's been debating since breakfast. The marketplace hums nearby, but here, in the shade, a gaggle of toga-clad thinkers are yammering about love between men and women, tossing around ideas like they're juggling overripe figs. These Greek philosophers, Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, and their chatty pals had opinions spicier than a symposium's wine, and love was their favorite puzzle to overcomplicate. We're not here to crack the code of romance, even Aphrodite threw up her hands, but to chuckle at their earnest wordplay, wrapped in the buzz of ancient Athens. So fluff your imaginary chiton, ignore the bleating goat in the distance, and let the rustle of papyrus, the flicker of a terracotta lamp, and their wordy banter lull you into a cozy, amused snooze. We're diving into 10 facets of their love theories, each a peek into the minds of men who thought logic could tame a fluttering heart. From shaded stoas to wine-soaked symposia, we'll meander through their ideas, savoring the scent of myrrh, the clink of cups, and the sheer audacity of defining something as messy as love. These philosophers were part poet, part know-it-all, their debates a blend of wisdom. And did he really just say that? Grab a mental goblet of watered-down wine, settle in, and let's giggle our way through their takes on love, each one a sleepy, snarky gem. Imagine lounging in a candlelit Athenian symposium 380 BCE, the air heavy with the scent of wine, roasted lamb, and the faint tang of someone's overzealous myrrh. Plato sprawled on a couch, wax tablet in hand, spinning a tale about love as a cosmic ladder to the divine, like it's a gym membership for your soul. The air's buzzing with the clink of cups, the rustle of tunics, and the occasional, "Oh, please," from a tipsy guest. In his symposium, Plato paints love between men and women as a climb from physical attraction to worshipping abstract beauty. But let's be honest, it sounds exhausting. Let's dive into this heady chat, letting the flicker of lamps, the whiff of grapes, and Plato's lofty metaphors make you chuckle as you drift toward sleep. Plato's big idea, via Aristophanes' myth and the symposium, is that humans were once double creatures, split by Zeus, so men and women chase their other half to feel whole. Love starts with a pretty face, but should climb to the form of beauty, per Plato's scribbles. The air was once thick with the scratch of stili and the smell of wax, as scribes jotted this down. Athenians, sipping wine, probably muttered, "Mate, I just wanted a date, not a spiritual marathon." The theory was grand, but it left lovers wondering if they needed a philosophy degree to flirt. Life around this idea was lively. Symposia where men, and sometimes women like Aspasia, debated, where love talk central, the air heavy with the clink of pottery and the scent of olive oil. Young men tried Plato's ladder on dates, probably bombing with lines like "Your beauty reflects the divine," The Agra buzzed with gossip about who was climbing with whom, the air tense with the rustle of cloaks and the hope of romance. The community loved the drama, snickering over cups about lovers chasing beauty itself, the air thick with wine fumes and the kind of laughter you get when philosophy meets a crush. Plato's ladder was a hit, and as the symposium fades, let's shift to Socrates, who saw love as a wild ride. Picture yourself perched on a marble step in Athens' Agra, 400 BCE, the air warm with the scent of dust, olives, and the faint whiff of Socrates' unwashed chitin. He's pacing, barefoot as always, grilling some poor soul about love, like it's a logic puzzle gone rogue. The air's buzzing with the murmur of onlookers, a clink of a dropped coin, and the distant strum of a lyre. In Plato's Phaedrus, Socrates calls love between men and women a divine madness, a gift from the gods that makes you lose your marbles, but might lead to wisdom. Let's wander into his chatty world, letting the flicker of a torch, the scent of myrrh, and his cheeky questions make you snicker as you sink toward slumber. Socrates' take is that love's a heavenly fever. Men and women fall hard, seeing the divine in each other, but should aim for philosophy, not just smooching. The Phaedrus has him waxing poetic about souls sprouting wings, the air once thick with Plato's stylus scratches, and the smell of wax. Athenians, eavesdropping, probably muttered, "Socrates, I just wanted to ask her out, not ascend to Olympus." His idea was that love's chaos could spark insight, but it sounded like a recipe for awkward dates. Life around this was a hoot. Young men at festivals trying Socratic pickup lines probably fumbled, the air heavy with the rustle of tunics and the scent of wine. Women, Persephone's poems, giggled at the madness talk, their flirtations sharper, the air warm with the strum of lyres and the hope of fun. The Agra was a stage, with Socrates' students debating love's insanity while dodging annoyed vendors, the air tense with the clink of coins and the murmur of "he's at it again." The community loved the spectacle, chuckling over bread about Socrates' zingers, the air thick with olive oil fumes, and the kind of laughter you get when love's a cosmic breakdown. His madness was a spark, and as the Agra fades, let's shift to Aristotle, who tried to make love boringly practical. Imagine sitting in the Lyceum, 335 BCE, the air heavy with the scent of papyrus dust and the faint whiff of Aristotle's overly serious beard oil. He's lecturing about love between men and women like it's a business deal, not a heart-pounding thrill. The air's buzzing with the scratch of stili, the rustle of cloaks, and the yawn of a student hoping for dating tips. In his Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle sees love as a friendship of virtue, where men and women bond over shared goodness, not just good looks. Let's stroll into his orderly world, letting the flicker of a lamp, the scent of wax, and his dry logic make you chuckle as you drift toward sleep. Aristotle's take is that love works best when both partners are virtuous, like a couple who agrees to split the chores and not steal each other's figs. It's less about passion and more about mutual respect, per his texts. The air was thick with the scratch of students' notes and the smell of ink as they scribbled his advice to choose wisely. Athenians, munching olives, probably muttered, "Thanks, Aristotle, but I just wanted her to like me back." His love was a checklist, not a sonnet, and it felt like homework. Life around this was practical. Men at symposia, trying to be virtuous, bored their dates with ethics talk, the air heavy with the clink of cups and the scent of wine. Women, per inscriptions, focused on family duties, their love tied to household harmony, the air warm with the rustle of linen, and the effort of keeping up. The agora buzzed with debates about virtuous matches, the air tense with the hope of stable marriages and the murmur of dowry deals. The community snickered over Aristotle's advice, joking over wine about virtuous flirting, the air thick with olive oil fumes, and the kind of laughter you get when love sounds like a contract. His practicality was a buzzkill, and as the Lyceum fades, let's shift to Sappho, who gave love a poetic pulse. Picture yourself lounging on a Lesbos hillside, 600 BCE, the air warm with the scent of wildflowers, sea salt, and the faint whiff of Sappho's wine-soaked breath. She's strumming her lyre, singing about love between men and women, like it's a fever you can't shake. The air's buzzing with the strum of strings, the rustle of tunics, and the sigh of a listener who's totally smitten. Her poems, per surviving fragments, paint love as a bittersweet beast that leaves men and women sweaty and stammering, far from Plato's lofty ladders. Let's dive into her lyrical world, letting the flicker of a fire, the scent of myrrh, and her sultry verses make you snicker as you sink toward slumber. Sappho's poetry calls love a wildfire, hitting men and women like a bolt from Zeus. Her lines, like "He seems to me equal to gods," drip with desire, the air once thick with the strum of her lyre and the smell of olive oil. Locals fanning themselves probably muttered, "Sappho, chill, I'm trying to sleep." Unlike philosophers' wordy debates, her take was raw, making love sound like a glorious disaster. Women and men alike swooned, their hearts racing to her tunes. Life around her songs was vibrant. Women at festivals sang her odes, weaving garlands, the air heavy with the rustle of flowers and the scent of wine. Men, hoping to charm, quoted her lines, the air warm with the clink of cups and the hope of a date. The community gathered at feasts, her poetry a soundtrack to romance, the air tense with the murmur of flirtations and the effort of not blushing. The community loved her passion, giggling over her verses by lamplight, the air thick with wine fumes and the kind of laughter you get when love's a heart-pounding mess. Sappho's odes kept pulses racing, and as the lyre fades, let's shift to the cultural context, where love was a social game. Imagine standing in Athens' Agora, 400 BCE, the air thick with the scent of olives, dust, and the faint whiff of a vendor's questionable fish. Philosophers are debating love, but the real drama's in the streets, where men and women navigate romance like it's a high-stakes chariot race. The air's buzzing with the clink of coins, the rustle of cloaks, and the murmur of gossip about who's courting whom. Love between men and women, per Xenophon's Economicus, was shaped by marriage, dowries, and social rules, not just feelings. Let's wander into this spectacle, letting the flicker of a torch, the scent of myrrh, and the city's snarky chatter make you chuckle as you drift toward sleep. Love was a social contract, not a bard's ballad. Men sought wives for heirs, women for security, per inscriptions, with philosophers like Plato pontificating over it all. The air was thick with the drone of matchmakers and the smell of ink as families haggled over dowries. Athenians, dodging market stalls, probably muttered, "Love more like a property deal." Women, often cloistered, snuck glances at suitors, the air warm with the rustle of veils and the hope of a good match, their lives shaped by practical needs. Life around this was chaotic. Festivals like the Panathenaea were prime flirting grounds, the air heavy with the chant of hymns and the scent of wine. Men debated love's ideals at symposia, their voices loud, the air tense with the clink of cups and the murmur of bets on who'd wed. Women managing households, balanced duty and desire, the air thick with the clack of looms and the effort of keeping up appearances. The community thrived on the gossip, snickering over mismatched couples, the air thick with olive oil fumes, and the kind of laughter you get when love's a public show. The culture kept romance spinning, and as the agra fades, let's shift to philosophical debates, where thinkers bickered over love's meaning. Picture yourself in a shaded stoa, 400 BCE, the air warm with the scent of dust, papyrus, and the faint whiff of a philosopher's sweaty chiton. Plato, Socrates, and their pals are arguing about love between men and women like it's a verbal wrestling match. The air's buzzing with the scratch of stili, the rustle of cloaks, and the occasional, "You're missing the point," from an exasperated thinker. In Plato's Symposium, love's a cosmic riddle, with each philosopher tossing in their 2 drachmas. Let's dive into this wordy chaos, letting the flicker of a lamp, the scent of wax, and their heated banter make you chuckle as you sink toward slumber. The debates were a circus. Plato's ladder of love clashed with Socrates' divine madness, while Aristotle, per his ethics, grumbled about needing virtue, not vibes. The air was thick with the drone of voices and the smell of ink as students scribbled notes. Athenians, eavesdropping, probably muttered, "Can't you just say love's nice and call it a day?" Women, rarely in these talks, had their say through poets like Sappho, whose passion outshone the men's logic. The air tense with the hope of clarity and the murmur of "he's still talking." Life around this was lively. Students, dodging Socrates' trick questions, tried his ideas at feasts, the air heavy with the clink of cups and the scent of wine. Women, per Xenophon, laughed off the debates, their lives focused on practical love, the air warm with the rustle of linen and the effort of managing suitors. The agra buzzed with snippets of these arguments, the air thick with the effort of sounding profound. The community loved the spectacle, giggling over philosophers' wordy fights, the air thick with olive oil fumes, and the kind of laughter you get when love's turned into a thesis. The debates kept minds spinning, and as the stoa fades, let's shift to women's perspectives, where love met reality. Imagine sitting by a loom in an Athenian courtyard, 400 BCE, the air warm with the scent of wool, olive oil, and the faint whiff of a child's sticky fingers. Women, weaving or managing households, had their own take on love, shaped by philosophers' ideas but grounded in daily life. The air's buzzing with the clack of looms, the rustle of tunics, and the murmur of gossip about suitors. Love for women, per Sappho and Xenophon, was a mix of passion and pragmatism, not just Plato's cosmic theories. Let's wander into their world, letting the flicker of a lamp, the scent of myrrh, and their sharp wit make you chuckle as you drift toward sleep. Women's love was practical, per inscriptions. Marriage meant security, not just swooning, with dowries and family alliances at stake. Sappho sang of desire, but most women, per Xenophon's Economicus, focused on stable matches, the air thick with the drone of matchmakers and the smell of wool. They probably muttered, "Socrates, I don't need divine madness. I need a husband who doesn't burn the stew." Love was a strategy, their hearts balancing duty and a few stolen glances. Life around this was busy. Women wove, cooked, and raised kids, their romance tied to household harmony, the air heavy with the clack of looms and the scent of bread. Festivals let them flirt, their voices warm, the air warm with the rustle of garlands and the hope of a spark. Men, quoting philosophers, got eye rolls, the air tense with the murmur of stick to farming. The community loved their sass, snickering over wine about women outsmarting suitors, the air thick with fumes and the kind of laughter you get when love's a practical game. Women's views were sharp, and as the courtyard fades, let's shift to love's darker side, where philosophers saw risks. Picture yourself in a dimly lit symposium, 380 BCE, the air heavy with the scent of wine, smoke, and the faint whiff of a guest who's overdone the olive oil. Philosophers like Plato are warning about love's dangers, their voices grave as they sip from clay cups. The air's buzzing with the clink of pottery, the rustle of tunics, and the murmur of he's got a point. In the Phaedrus and Symposium, love between men and women could lead to obsession or ruin, a fire that burns too hot. Let's dive into this cautionary tale, letting the flicker of a lamp, the scent of myrrh, and their grim warnings make you chuckle as you sink toward slumber. Plato and Socrates saw love as a double-edged sword. It could lift you to wisdom or drag you into chaos, per the Phaedrus, where passion blinds men and women to reason. The air was thick with the scratch of stille and the smell of wax, as scribes noted their warnings. Athenians, nursing hangovers, probably muttered, "Great, now love's a health hazard." Women, her Sappho, embraced the fire but knew its risks, their songs hinting at heartbreak, the air tense with the hope of balance, and the murmur of "don't fall too hard." Life around this was dramatic. Men at feasts, swayed by love, made fools of themselves, the air heavy with the clink of cups and the scent of wine. Women managing households dodged obsessive suitors, the air warm with the rustle of linen and the effort of staying grounded. The agora buzzed with tales of love gone wrong, the air thick with gossip and the effort of avoiding scandal. The community loved the warnings, snickering over bread about lovers' missteps, the air thick with olive oil fumes, and the kind of laughter you get when love's a risky game. The perils were real, and as the symposium fades, let's shift to love's role in marriage, where philosophy met reality. Imagine lounging in a sunlit Athenian home, 400 BCE, the air warm with the scent of bread, wool, and the faint whiff of a neighbor's overcooked fish. A couple's bickering over who forgot to buy olives, their voices blending with the hum of a loom. The air's buzzing with the clink of pottery, the rustle of tunics, and the distant chant of a festival. Philosophers like Aristotle, or Nicomachean Ethics, saw love and marriage as a practical bond, not just a passionate fling, tying men and women to family and polis. Let's saunter into their world, letting the flicker of a lamp, the scent of myrrh, and their domestic banter make you chuckle as you drift toward sleep. Aristotle argued that love in marriage was a friendship of virtue, where men and women built a life on mutual respect, per his texts. It was less about fireworks and more about sharing the load, like a team plowing a field. The air was thick with the drone of scribes and the smell of ink as they noted his advice. Couples managing households probably muttered, "Virtue? I just want him to stop leaving sandals everywhere." Marriage was a social glue, with philosophers' ideas shaping expectations. Life around this was steady. Men negotiated dowries, their voices loud, the air heavy with the clink of coins and the scent of wine. Women ran homes, their love practical, the air warm with the clack of looms and the effort of keeping peace. Festivals brought couples together, the air tense with the chant of hymns and the hope of harmony. The community loved their routines, snickering over wine about domestic squabbles, the air thick with olive oil fumes, and the kind of laughter you get when love's a daily grind. Marriage was a balance, and as the home fades, let's shift to the legacy of these ideas, where love's debates lived on. Picture yourself in a modern library in Athens, 2025 CE. The air soft with the scent of old books, dust, and the faint whiff of a scholar's coffee. Researchers are poring over Plato's Symposium, chuckling at ancient takes on love between men and women. The air's humming with the rustle of pages, the click of a laptop, and the murmur of "they really thought that?" These philosophers' ideas, preserved in texts, shaped Western views on love from Rome to rom-coms. Let's wander into their legacy, letting the flicker of a lamp, the scent of ink, and their enduring quirks make you chuckle as you sink toward slumber. Plato's ladders, Socrates' madness, and Aristotle's virtue shaped how love was seen, for translations like those of Jowett. Their ideas trickled into Roman law, Christian theology, and even modern novels. The air once thick with the scratch of stele and the smell of wax. Scholars flipping pages probably mutter, "Plato, you made dating sound like a PhD." Couples today, arguing over dishes, unknowingly echo Aristotle's friendship. The air tense with the hope of understanding and the murmur of same old fights. Life around this legacy is quieter now. Museums display Greek texts, visitors whispering they overthought love too, as they gawk, the air heavy with the hum of curiosity. Philosophers' debates spark modern discussions, the air warm with the rustle of pages and the effort of connecting past to present. The community, from ancients to today, loves the story, snickering over coffee about love's timeless mess. The air thick with book dust and the kind of laughter you get when history's ideas still resonate. Their legacy endures, and as the library fades, let's wrap up with a final reflection, tying these love theories together with a smirk. When you strip away the togas, amphorae, and olive groves, the ancient Greek debates on love between men and women feel oddly familiar, almost like scrolling through a never-ending feed of modern relationship advice columns, YouTube think pieces, or TikTok therapy trends. The human longing to define, categorize, and control the chaos of attraction has not faded in over 2,000 years. It's simply been repackaged in new formats. In Plato's Athens, the medium for debating love was the symposium, a wine-soaked evening of intellectual jousting, where philosophers and poets traded lofty ideals and sharp quips. Today, the same dynamic unfolds in podcasts, social media threads, and even TED Talks, where modern philosophers, influencers, psychologists, and opinionated podcasters pitch competing theories of love, each convinced they've cracked the code. The difference is that instead of wax tablets and papyrus, we have microphone pop filters and ring lights. Take Plato's ladder of love from the Symposium. He framed attraction as a spiritual gym membership, where you start by admiring physical beauty, climb through emotional connection, and eventually arrive at the pure, abstract form of beauty itself. In modern terms, this sounds suspiciously like self-help books urging readers to find someone who inspires your growth, or look beyond the surface to connect with the soul. On dating apps, we see echoes of this in profiles that list deep conversations and personal development as essential traits. The language has changed, but the premise that romance should elevate you remains intact. In fact, Plato's ladder maps surprisingly well onto today's relationship goals culture, where couples present their love as a mutual journey toward becoming better versions of themselves. The irony is that, much like in Athens, many modern people stop on the first rung, contact with the initial spark, and never quite making it to the philosophical summit. The climb, as Plato would admit, is exhausting. Socrates' notion of divine madness in the Phaedrus feels even more current. He saw love as a kind of glorious short-circuiting of reason, a divine fever that could either destroy you or, if navigated wisely, lead to a higher understanding of beauty and truth. In 2025, this could just as easily be the plot of a Netflix romantic drama, or the premise of a therapist's viral TikTok on love bombing and emotional intensity. We still romanticize the idea of being swept away by passion, even while relationship experts warn about its dangers. Socrates would fit right into modern discourse, talking about how attraction can make you act irrationally, but also open you up to profound personal transformation. Essentially the same advice you'd find in a mashup of psychology blogs and spiritual coaching videos. His metaphor of the soul growing wings when inspired by love feels like an ancient ancestor of today's language about alignment and vibrational matches in the wellness community. Aristotle's friendship of virtue approach from the Nicomachean Ethics translates neatly into contemporary discussions about compatibility and shared values. In his view, the best romantic relationships were those built on mutual respect and a shared pursuit of the good life. Partnerships where each person supported the other's moral and intellectual development. Today you'd hear the same sentiment from marriage counselors emphasizing teamwork, or from online advice threads insisting that couples should be best friends first. Aristotle's practicality love as a stable, respectful, and purpose-driven collaboration mirrors the advice found in modern long-term relationship success stories. The difference is that Aristotle wasn't interested in emotional fireworks. He saw love's highest form as steady and rational, which might explain why his version doesn't inspire quite as many rom-coms as Plato's or Sappho's visions. Speaking of Sappho, her poetry is perhaps the most directly relatable to our era. Her description of love as bittersweet and overwhelming, the kind of passion that leaves you speechless and trembling, reads like the most heartfelt Instagram captions or the emotional verses of contemporary singer-songwriters. In a world still hungry for raw, unfiltered expressions of desire, Sappho's work resonates more than the philosopher's careful dissections. She might not have had an iPhone, but if she did, she'd probably dominate the poetry corner of social media, her lines going viral as people tagged their lovers under fragments of her verses. Modern audiences connect with her emphasis on love's sensory and emotional intensity, its ability to inspire joy and inflict pain in equal measure. Beyond the individual thinkers, the social context of ancient Greek love debates also parallels ours. In Athens, marriage was often an arrangement negotiated for political alliances, property consolidation, and social standing. Romantic love, if it existed between husband and wife, was a bonus rather than the foundation. This dynamic mirrors the pragmatic side of modern relationships. especially in cultures where economic stability, family approval, and social compatibility still heavily influence partner choice. Even in more individualistic societies, the conversations about marrying well or seeking a partner with financial stability echo Aristotle's concerns about building a life together with shared resources and responsibilities. Where Athens had the agora and the symposium as public forums for gossip and debate about who was courting whom, we have social media as a 24/7 amphitheater of personal drama. In both eras, the community served as an audience and sometimes a jury for romantic developments. The Athenians might whisper about who was climbing Plato's ladder with whom. Today, we speculate over celebrity relationships, decode Instagram posts for hidden meanings, and turn personal love lives into trending topics. The human appetite for public dissection of private emotions remains the same, only the tools and scale have evolved. Interestingly, ancient Greek women's perspectives on love, often pragmatic, witty, and grounded, are strikingly similar to the way modern women navigate relationships in a world still shaped by gender expectations. In Xenophon's Economicus, the ideal wife's role was to manage the household, secure the family's resources, and maintain harmony, practical priorities that remain relevant, though now often shared between partners. Modern women, like their ancient counterparts, still juggle emotional labor with practical needs, still roll their eyes at overcomplicated philosophical musings about love, and still use humor as a shield against romantic disappointment. The sass, it seems, is timeless. The ancient cautionary tales about love's dangers also find their place in today's discourse. Philosophers warned that passion could lead to obsession, ruin, and poor judgment. Advice mirrored in modern psychological warnings about unhealthy attachments, toxic relationships, and the fine line between deep love and destructive dependency. The Greek idea that love could elevate or degrade the soul has its modern equivalent in conversations about whether a relationship brings out the best in someone or drags them into dysfunction. Our language may be more clinical now: attachment styles, emotional regulation, boundaries, but the core concerns are unchanged. Even the role of festivals and gatherings in ancient romance finds its equivalent today. In Athens, religious festivals like the Panathenea were opportunities for flirting, matchmaking, and displaying one's eligibility. In modern life, weddings, concerts, and nightlife events serve the same purpose: social spaces where romance is sparked amid community celebration. The sensory backdrop changes: ancient lyres and incense replaced by DJ sets and LED lights, but the function is identical. Love thrives in moments of heightened emotion and shared cultural ritual. If Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle were alive today, their ideas would likely adapt to modern platforms. Plato might run a popular YouTube channel breaking down the 5 levels of love you need to master, complete with animated diagrams of his ladder. Socrates could be the bane of online debates, constantly responding to relationship hot takes with, "But what do you mean by love?" until he's blocked for being insufferable. Aristotle would likely run a well-reviewed Substack on building virtuous partnerships, with bullet point lists and practical advice for conflict resolution. Sappho, meanwhile, would be the queen of viral poetry reels, setting her verses to soft music and inspiring thousands of duet videos. Perhaps the biggest shift between then and now is the democratization of who gets to contribute to the conversation. In ancient Greece, philosophical discussions about love were largely the domain of educated men, with women's voices preserved mainly through poetry like Sappho's or indirect references in male-authored texts. Today, the conversation is far more inclusive. People of all genders, sexual orientations, and cultural backgrounds contribute to shaping how love is understood and discussed. Still, certain patterns persist. Lofty ideals competing with raw emotion, practical needs negotiating with passion, and the constant human desire to make sense of something that resists definition. We might also note that in both eras the gap between theory and practice is vast. Athenians might nod along to Plato's vision of love as a path to divine beauty, then turn around and engage in affairs, gossip, and pragmatic marriages. Modern people, too, often espouse ideals about love emphasizing emotional maturity, mutual growth, and self-awareness, while getting tangled in messy breakups, impulsive choices, and contradictions. The lived reality of love rarely fits the neat frameworks philosophers or dating coaches design. Ultimately, comparing ancient Greek theories of love to modern attitudes reveals a continuum rather than a contrast. The vocabulary has shifted, the cultural backdrops have changed, and the mediums for discussion have evolved, but the core questions remain stubbornly the same. What is love's purpose? Should it prioritize passion or stability? Is it a means of self-discovery, a partnership for mutual benefit, or a divine madness to be embraced? The ancient Greeks wrestled with these questions over wine and olives. We wrestle with them over coffee and smartphone screens. And just like them, we oscillate between trying to master love through logic and surrendering to its delightful, maddening unpredictability. The real comfort in this comparison is the recognition that our struggles with love are not uniquely modern. The same frustrations, joys, and contradictions have played out for millennia. Whether in the sunlit stoas of Athens or the digital chatrooms of the 21st century, humans remain irresistibly drawn to dissecting love. Even as Socrates might cheekily point out, none of us can agree on what it actually is. The debates may never end, and perhaps that's the point. Love's mystery is its greatest constant, giving each generation a reason to pick up where the last left off, to add another verse, another theory, another laugh at our own expense. As the hum of ancient debates fades to clink of cups, the rustle of tunics, the scent of myrrh and slightly burnt fish, let your mind flop into the quiet like a philosopher after a long symposium. We've wandered through Plato's cosmic ladders, Socrates' divine madness, and Sappho's fiery odes, each a peek into love's messy puzzle. Their world was a whirlwind of wine, logic, and gossip sharper than a Spartan spear. Yet it was also a place where men and women wrestled with love's highs and lows, just like us. Picture yourself now, tucked into a soft bed, the air still and the chaos of their time far away, their banter a distant chuckle. These theories, lofty and absurd, remind us that even the wisest Greeks couldn't tame love's wild heart. Let the details slip away like a lamp flickering out in a breezy stoa. The smoky symposia, the dusty agoras, the taste of wine and olives, they fade into the background, leaving only the peace of this moment and a lingering smirk. You've journeyed through a world where love was a philosophical sport, its thinkers' earnest quills and sharp wits keeping its story alive. Now it's time to rest, to let go of the ancient antics and sink into calm. Close your eyes, if you haven't already, and let the gentle absurdity of history lull you into sleep, safe in the silliness of now.